Well, the Blue Jackets played a game last night. They lost by the final score of 9-4 against the Buffalo Sabres. That score alone does not encapsulate how bad that game was, considering when thrown into the context of the first period, the Jackets were down 6-0 after 20 minutes. Korpisalo started. He was pulled after he allowed 3 goals on 5 shots. Elvis came in and also allowed 3 goals on however many shots were taken. Tage Thompson had 4 goals and 1 assist just in the first period alone. Usually when I take notes, usually when I watch the games, I kind of like take some notes down or write some things about what I want to say after in these recaps / reaction videos, whatever. But honestly, once the 4th goal went in, I just kind of stopped and just started to laugh along with everyone else because at some point, what else can you do? There's no point in getting angry and fuming over it once it crosses the funny bad threshold. Although for me, it kind of like went back and forth between it was just bad. After like 3-0, it was like bad. It was how can this team come out this flat at home when all the players' moms are here and every high school team shows up in the arena for this thing. And then, the 4th goal is scored and Tage Thompson has like a million points by the time the first period ends. And then it's just kind of like, you might as well just join in the parade of just how bad can this get? You might as well just ask yourself that and be along for the ride, essentially. No reason to fight the tidal wave that's coming at you. Honestly, this might be, again, this is probably going to be a really short video. Not much else to go over here. There's the Blue Jackets did. The excuse for this is like, well, they came back and they responded and had 4 goals. They outscored the Buffalo Sabres the rest of the way, which is completely meaningless. And I just mostly summarize that up to score effects because I believe if the Sabres had truly wanted to put up more points and score as many goals as they wanted to, they probably could have. It might have been more aesthetically pleasing for the Sabres to get 10 just so we get up to that nice round even number of a 0 and a double digits, and it's a momentous achievement. But instead it's stuck at 9. Tage Thompson ends up with 5 goals, so he scores 1 more. And honestly, you could tell that at some point the Sabres just kind of felt a little bad. They were trying to get Tage Thompson to the record. I know the TNT broadcast. Oh, that's another thing, by the way, I'll get to in a little bit. The TNT broadcast, the guy on the ice, making note that the Sabres knew what the record was, and if you have 4 goals after 1 period, then it's at least within the realm of possibility that you might be able to get 7, or at least tie that record. So they were trying to feed him for some chances, but on the whole, you could tell that the Sabres kind of took their foot off the gas and really were content to coast the rest of the 40 minutes because, again, they built a 6-goal lead. I know there was some rumblings about, maybe the Blue Jackets can come back after Nyquist and Laine got 2 goals and made it 6-2, which is still a horrible score. But then the Sabres put any talk of that to rest with 3 goals of their own in the second period. And the third period, the Blue Jackets get some consolation goals. But besides that, it was a disaster. It was a mess. Apparently, the Blue Jackets had a locker room meeting and the doors were closed for about 15 minutes after the game, so the media wasn't allowed in for a little bit of time. Brad Larsen saying, in 26 years as a professional, he has never seen anything like it. And again, like I mentioned earlier, this was a TNT broadcast. This was one of the very few nationally televised games that the Blue Jackets are going to get this season. I think that was 1 of 3. The Blue Jackets don't get a whole lot of national TV coverage just in general. I think last year they didn't get any. All their quote-unquote national TV games were the ones that they say are national on ESPN Plus and Hulu Live, which that's not really national TV. But this was one of the few times that the Jackets actually get on a mainstream cable channel, and they just crap themselves in front of a national audience. I know there were some issues with, I think it was Spectrum, or maybe it was just the TNT and TBS channels in general, but there was issues with the feed freezing up and screening. I streamed the game, so I didn't have any of those issues, but there were some Jackets fans who saw it was like 2-0, and then the screen froze, and then by the time the feed got back, it was 4-0, and then I just turned the game off, which is completely rational. But again, I kind of just had to. I was under the impression of let's just see how bad this can get. Maybe this can be like when the Blue Jackets blew out Montreal 10-0. Maybe this can be of something similar, and I do want to witness history, but I guess unfortunately for the spectacle of the whole thing, I guess fortunately for the Blue Jackets' little remaining dignity, I don't know how you can have any after that game. And I also don't know how you can have this performance happen to you on home ice, no less. Coming out flat. I know you're on the second half of a back-to-back, and your team's injured. And I'm not even expecting the Blue Jackets to win this game or anything, or even look that great doing it. I expect them to look like they belong in the National Hockey League with the Buffalo Sabres. It's not like they were playing, the Avalanche or a team that's like on the rise of the Leafs or one of the, or even, a team that's expected to even make the playoffs. The Sabres aren't, they're not expected to make the playoffs. Maybe they make a run, but they're pretty down there in the standings in the East right now. They're a long shot to make it. And I know Tage Thompson is great, but you think after you get a hat trick on you in the first period, you would let anybody else score. You would literally just let anybody else score and have it not be Tage Thompson. But he got two more after he already had a hat trick in the first period. I wonder how bad that rating for that game was, or maybe it got better as the game went along because maybe a lot of people turned it off at like 3 or 4-0, but then once it realized the Sabres might have a chance to get to double-digit goals, or maybe Tage Thompson sets that record, maybe people tuned back in. Who knows? But anyway, an embarrassing performance for the Blue Jackets. I don't know how you can take this performance and not change anything. Look, I've kind of semi-defended Lars about maybe he's getting a little bit too much of the brunt of the ire from the fan base. Maybe it's not his fault that half the team is injured, and the defense, even if it was having a perfect system, the pieces on defense aren't that great, especially with the injuries. But man, it feels like you have to change something. It feels like you can't have that performance go unpunished in some kind of way. And this isn't the only lackluster performance where the Blue Jackets are out-efforted by the team for pretty much the entire game. I don't like saying that, a team has no effort in general, but there have been plenty of Blue Jacket performances where the other team definitely has more get up and go throughout the entirety of the game than the Blue Jackets do. This is, of course, this is obviously not an exception. I don't see how you can look at this performance and feel like everything is okay with how the ship is going and where everything is headed and be like, yeah, we shouldn't make any changes to this at all. We should just, write this off and keep going. That was bad. And Eric Goodbranson is now coming out and publicly saying that practices aren't going very well. That seems like kind of a head coach thing to me. Maybe it's the players just not showing up for practices and, being mentally checked out. But apparently there's I think it was Jared Porchline who confirmed in The Athletic that, the players don't really know what the drills are going to be at practice going in. So practice time is being wasted on explaining to the players what they're going to do, and that could just be, that could be an email or a text or even just like a note outside of the door, like here's what practice is going to be, show up ready, but instead you're wasting practice time into getting into and explaining what the drills are. I feel like that there's just there's some cog that's missing with the leadership, whether it's behind the benches or even on the ice, to be completely honest. I don't want to get into like leadership in the locker room because I'm obviously not there. I don't know what's being said or what leadership is being handed out to, but it just seems like there's something fundamentally flawed about something that's being told to this team and how this team is going out and playing. There doesn't seem to be a ton of chemistry between the lines, and it just, I don't know, there just seems to be something wrong, and it feels like the Jackets need to make a change, even if it's just on the basis of we don't know if this change will be any better, but I'm not sure how this can get any worse because as far as, I've made the argument that if you fire Brad Larsen, who do you hire? I don't know. I feel like almost anyone else can do a job of this team where it gets blown out 9-2. We can get somebody else to coach a team that loses 9-2 and gets outscored 6-0 in the first period. I feel like that's about as bad of a coaching job as you can get. And if this was an isolated incident, I'd be more willing to forgive it and move on, but it isn't. This has been happening for a while now. It's been happening throughout this season, and the season is only a third of the way through. How much longer can this go on before it starts to become a longer issue and it starts to, tear its way into the culture of this team where it is still very young, and there's a lot of young pieces that the Blue Jackets are hoping that will stick around long-term and be long-term contributors. Does this season and how it's gone so far, does that damage that and hinder that chance in the near and long-term future? I'm not sure. So thank you all for watching. If you made it this far, this was kind of a rant because honestly, I'm not sure if I couldn't not go on a rant after watching that performance. So I'll see you at the next one.